as they portrayed them. But
And
they're
I
there.
think that was a telltale sign. I think they were trying to tell us. And again, I think Hollywood does that all the time. I think there are people on the inside
The
who
hell?
want us to know, and they try and leak this out. Jason, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No.
No, that was me. I'm saying I'm trying to put this damn video up, and I see little dots flashing. I don't know what the hell. Go ahead. Never mind. Go ahead, Dr. Rand. I'm sorry.
What I'd like to do is I don't want to steer from where we're at. What I'd like to do is clarify a little bit something regarding this issue of contactees, which the three of us and Michael, although you've not been personally contacted, you certainly have had several sightings, correct?
Yeah, they've teased me.
All right. What I'd like to do is when I represented the United States at the first World UFO Congress, which took place in Tucson in May of 1991, I prepared a document which I presented called the UFO ETUT Timeline Enigma. When did it begin and where will it end? I want to read a little bit of an excerpt from it because it deals with what an ET is versus what a UT is. ET being extraterrestrial and UT meaning ultra-terrestrial. So let me begin with what I wrote and presented at that meeting on ETs. I presented it in the form of a series of what-ifs, okay? Okay. What if extraterrestrials, ETs, represent a much younger, advanced cosmic intelligence force, which may in fact exist in a dual reality form representing both benevolent and malevolent intentions, i.e. the Greys, the EBEs, which are the extraterrestrial biological entities, or perhaps the purported reptilian-like creatures from the Zeti Reticuli system. Now, both are suspected of being in contact with many of the world's governments for well over 70 years, and in many cases suspected of striking secret deals and pacts with not only our government, but with top-secret organizations like MJ-12, PI-40, and 54-12. Question, did they covertly agree to exchange high-tech information to gain Earthian resources, which means establishing secret underground research facilities, and in many cases, the right to abduct or experiment with humans and animals. In case of the animals, most likely cattle, producing other types of animal mutilations. Now I want to go to UTs. Question, what if ultra-terrestrials, UTs, represent a much older, more complex and highly developed, spiritually oriented cosmic intelligence force, which may exist in a primary reality form of benevolent intention and behavior, i.e. the blondes, also called the Nordics, who are, by our human standards, 7 feet tall, blue-eyed, fair-haired, and fair-skinned. Throughout history, it is rumored they have been in contact with many of the world's governments, key scientists, and simply ordinary folk, while most often promoting goodwill, sometimes sharing timely, important knowledge and information covering many fields, disciplines useful to mankind during his troubled sojourn through Earthian history. That's the end of the quote. Now I want to hypothecate on that just a second, and then I'll turn it back to you guys.
Okay.
In my case, they were UTs. They were not ETs in the classic sense. I'm drifting toward the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis as being the more positive one that's been interfacing with the Earth through time memorial, all the way back to caveman days, all the way back to all the and Peter, of course, can correspond to this, all the biblical implications were not with just ETs who may or may not have our best interests at heart. I believe that the more complicated spacecraft, the big triangles, the ones that are city blocks wide and hundreds of feet high, these are the extraterrestrial, these are the ultra-terrestrial craft that dwarf what we commonly see as the regular extraterrestrial craft. Now, the question is, how do we differentiate? And that can only be established by the individual or the contactee per se, that has had the contact and that is aware and cognizant enough to share that experience in a contemporary, intelligent setting. Now, Peter, I think you were dealing with extraterrestrials, not ultra-terrestrials.
I've dealt with them all.
Yes, but I'm the confusion that you were left with, and the subsequent trauma. And I'm not saying you're severely traumatized, but
Oh no.
you've admitted to me that it has left you with a lot more questions that have never been answered. Okay.
Yeah, and eventually we'll find the answers out. But when that was the negative ETs that I've been in contact with, and certainly the ones that have tried to end my life 16 times. But on the converse side, I have to look at the contact that I had when I was in a coma, and an entity came to me and said, "Hey, come with me," and took me to see the birth of my youngest child. There's the blue orb that instantly appeared out of nowhere that stopped a deer from coming through the windshield of my car, which would have been certain death for both me and my son. When we impacted that, we had to be doing close to 60 miles an hour. I just set the cruise control for 63. So
I got it.
You see things like that, plus all the something that I did, which I don't talk about that often, but here's part of seeing a negative timeline. I got a lot of answers when I took a class that was developed by Jose Silva. I can't tell you exactly when he developed it, but I took the class in 1970.
Thank you, Ira.
1978. And
Michael, you got the video. I'm sorry, Pete.
Listen, guys.
You have the video up, Michael.
Let me address the listeners real quick. I've got the video up on screen here. I want everyone to take a good look at this. I'm going to play it a few times while the guys are talking. And then I wouldn't mind in the last hour if people let us know what you think, whether in chat or whatever. But go ahead.
Well, I had taken this class, and it was the greatest class I had ever taken. It was based on the work of Edgar Cayce, but they broke it down scientifically so they could repeat the work and teach the class. And this really taught interdimensional thinking. Of course, back then they didn't know that we lived in a multiverse, but the rules still applied, that you could receive any information anywhere within the universe or anywhere within existence where life existed itself. Now they say anywhere within any dimension, which is interesting. They've changed the wording, just the verbiage just a little bit. I did get the updated tapes or CDs actually, but this opened up a whole new realm of how to use our consciousness and explain why I was able to see future events, because that's one of the things that we can do in Theta. Now, part of the class, I believe it was in the 303 section, they gave you guides, spiritual guides. You went down to level, and they programmed it, and you were supposed to get spiritual guides, and I didn't get any spiritual guides. The only one in the class didn't get any spiritual guides for me. So, after the exercise was over and people were giving their experiences, I talked to the teacher and I said, "Hey, I didn't get any." And he said, "Well, okay, we're going to do this again. And when we do it again after the break, pick two, anybody that you want. The past, present, future doesn't make any difference." So I was like, okay, wait a minute. I've got to pick two entities, and I did. I believe I picked Pocahontas and Geronimo. Anyway, and so they were my spiritual guides throughout the rest of the class. But I thought, why should I go? Who are these spiritual guides that are giving me information? And these were actual entities, the entity of Pocahontas and Geronimo. And I'm like, okay, and I was supposed to ask them questions that I was looking for answers to. And that didn't totally fit with everything that I had learned from the scriptures, because now I was putting additional life forms of who I just gave names to. I didn't get a set originally. I had to go look for a set or invent a set.
All right, guys, we've got to take a break here. So, Peter, if you could find a stopping point there in a minute.
Absolutely. My point is this, is that thousands and thousands of people have taken this class and certainly have gone on to bigger and better things. But we have to be careful of who we have contact with. I've had contact on both sides, and it's the good side that's keeping me alive. Other people have seen my guardian angel as well. So this is the distinction that we have to use extreme caution with as we go forward. Anyway, time for a break, folks. Thanks for listening.
All right, great. Yeah, let's take that break, and then when I come back, I'll go ahead and I'll play that video one more time. People give me your opinions. I'll give mine. We don't get a couple more hours, though. We'll be back, folks. Don't leave. We'll get to it.
I want to jump into the political arena, because I'm getting really pissed off. Okay, I had.
That's right. Yell at us.
I had a dear friend of mine who happens to be black, who I've shared a dozen dinners and lunches, and we've talked about politics and religion, and she's extremely intelligent. I'm not going to give any names.
Uh-oh.
She's a former union negotiator at the highest level. And I've always known that she had a left bent, which is fine. It's fine. Everyone's entitled to be who they are, what they are, when they are, and why they are. I mean, that's what the free spirit of being a human is all about. Well, about 2 weeks ago, well, let me backtrack a second. Since the election, and when the Trumpster won, I figured it wasn't a good idea if I called her right away because I didn't want her to be upset. I mean, you know, we talked about the election, and I knew she was a Hillary fan, and she knew I was a Trump fan. So I didn't call for the first 2-3 weeks. So then I didn't hear from her at all, so I ventured a call. I bet I called 6, 7, 8 times. I left messages. Polite.
Yeah.
I said, please, let's get together. Nothing.
Snowflakes.
About 10 days ago, middle of the day, I get a phone call from my dear friend. And she starts out nearly hysterical. How could I have voted for the monster that's now in the White House? And she started going on and on and on. And I thought to myself, dear Lord, what have you done to my friend? So I let her go, guys. I figured I try to jump in.
You should have gave her my number. I would have loved to have laughed with her.
With Michael, Jason, I got the same exact thing from dear close friends. As soon as Trump, I mean, I'm telling you, one night here at the house, very close friends of our family, we had a discussion. I tried to explain to her that it's got nothing to do with Trump. He's an independent. He just had to run on the Republican ticket. It was like it was like watching The Exorcist. Okay, it was that bad. Peter, you can understand this. The moment I tried to explain to both of them, okay, that Trump understands exactly what's going on. He knows what the Federal Reserve is, how we've been manipulated, how we've been lied to about everything. And as I brought the talking points out, I thought she was going to spew green peas out of her mouth. They immediately both got, and we're still friends, mind you. Just remember that we're still friends because I've been able to we've the family been able to keep the connection and contact. And we, as a matter of fact, they were here last night, and everything's really smoothed over. But it was like a vicious, violent attack with no talking points. They had nothing to talk about except the same rhetoric that's been spewed out over what MSNBC, CNN, the Clown News Network, CNBC.
And they're getting so mad
all of them.
from being called fake news. It's getting so under their skin because they know it's true. And it's just.
But Michael, it was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible.
I don't miss any of the people like that. Believe me, I've lost some too. I've even lost some guests. You know what? I didn't lose them. They lost me. But piss on them. If they want the country to fall apart, I don't want them anywhere around me. I don't care how much I liked them at one time. And believe me, I don't miss those people. It's their loss. They're the idiots.
I haven't lost anybody over this whole thing with the election. Whether Trump.
Well, you're lucky, Peter. You're lucky.
Well, the interesting.
Well, Peter's too likable. That's why.
My kingdom's not part of this world, so I can throw stones in both parts if I want.
May I interject this one thing, Peter?
Well,
There's one thing that.
Before you do, I just want to support you on this one thing. Because what you had said earlier, just before we went on the air, the last post I made on Facebook was this, and I'll read it. Why are the globalists freaking out over Trump? Keep in mind that Trump is a businessman and has been most of his life. Two things about businessmen: they hate losing money and they dictate. Almost $20 trillion in debt caused by self-centered, backstabbing politicians who start the lies the sheep will believe. Trump is not going to ask; he's going to tell, and he has the military behind him.
Couldn't have said it better myself,
Yep.
Peter. Couldn't have said it better myself. The only thing I was going to interject was this, that, and Michael, this is for you, and I don't know how you'll take it, but I'm going to just put it out there, that Christ said, and I don't follow this line of thought, Peter. I know you do, but I don't. But Christ said, you know what? If the thief wants to steal your clothes that badly, let him have it, because he probably needs it more than you do. And the idea behind that is that they're so lost, they're so out of place within themselves that they don't know how to react to kindness, love, caring, and kindness. So you have to even give it more to them because they're so lost.
You brought up an interesting point, if I just might.
And then let's get back to Planet X, guys.
Sure. The whole scriptures, the whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is 6,000 years of alien intervention or ET intervention in human affairs. And that's something that the church is never going to teach you. It's never going to tell you that. And they're never going to tell you the implications of the kingdom. There is a satanic kingdom ruling now. The kingdom coming, the return of Christ, is tied in with the Planet X event, the Nibiru event, and we can deduce that by there's 6 prophecies within the Bible all dealing with the same thing. So once we realize that the scriptures are future events foretold by alien or extraterrestrial life forms given to humans, as a matter of fact, Revelation was given from Jesus to John, and we're in a interdimensional war soon to come to Earth. That's when we'll start to get the total concept of the scriptures. You see, it talks about all these different entities.
It does. Michael, just before we went to break, you wanted to ask everybody what you thought about the video.
Man, I forgot. Look, I forgot about it. And here it is again, everyone. Watch this video, and I want to know what people think, and then I'll tell you what I think.
let me go right back to both Peter and Robert here.
All right, yell at us, Dr. Rand.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'll have to correct that. Okay, look. The book of Revelation did come from Jesus, but it came through an angelic presence that met with the Apostle John on Patmos. Now, do we not assume that in the Lord's domain, he can have angels in any form or shape that he so desires? And would they not be considered extraterrestrial in nature? If they're not from here, where are they from?
I've been raising that question for a long time, Doctor.
What's that, sir?
I said I've been raising that question for a long time because we go right back to Genesis, and we've got a Genesis chapter 2. There's a record of genetic engineering. So who were the genetic engineers?
Uh-huh.
And there's, as you go through the scriptures, there's different life forms that are talked about, and even though it's not part of the general biblical canon, you go and look at what's written in the book of Enoch, and it's like, holy smokes, really? You're dealing with life forms that are energy life forms that can shapeshift from energy or the form of fire into a human, and then back to the form of fire at will. So what are these things?
It's a shame, Peter, that modern day religion, and this is not a knock on Christian theology. It's more of a statement on the present day. I'm trying to say it. I don't want to insult or hurt anyone of a religious indoctrination. but the point is, they have got to get past the same basic message week after week after week from the pulpit. People understand the Bible. They understand it more so than you would believe. It's just like my little
but they stand
people
it.
that came out. They understood what was going on with this election.
Doctor, they understand it based on religious dogma and doctrine. They don't understand it based on science.
Peter, not doctrine, indoctrination. This is the problem.
Well, there you go.
It's indoctrination. They only follow the action. They take it as literal, and they're not looking at the larger over viewpoint of what it actually means. And another point I want to bring up is why have so many things left out of the Bible, like reincarnation. And Michael, I think I sent you a message the other night to one of your guests in regards to this reincarnation. I think it was Tradcat Knight, which I do follow, by the way, because I think he's a brilliant researcher. But they close themselves off. They close themselves off in their thought process, and they say, well, no, I only follow a traditional viewpoint. And if you open your thought process up, you can grab a larger picture of maybe what's going on.
We had about over 23,000 on YouTube for that one, so that was interesting. And now listen, I watched that video. Everybody's been able to see it if you've been watching the broadcast. And for me, I found it really interesting up until there was a point where it just disappears, and the sun was still there. And for that, I'm thinking it's some kind of sun devil.
Okay, and I will say this to that, Michael, is that what happens is because we on planet Earth are on a sphere, we are looking through a fisheye lens. As a fisheye lens, its apparatus, let's say it opens and the sky gets brighter and something is very far away, it's going to get blended back out into the background. And the other part of that is this. Why would it only happen in certain parts of the year? This is taking place between March and April. If that were the case, Michael, if it's an anomaly, it should be happening all the time.
Well, it happened.
It would happen all the time.
It would happen when the clouds were just right, I think, when
but there were no clouds, Michael.
But actually there wasn't. It wasn't thick cloud, but you could see, like, as the video went afterwards, you could see them kind of surrounding the sun. I don't know if you want to call it cloud or moisture or whatever the heck it was, but I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. And
gotcha. There's another video out there that was captured by somebody else by the same cam, by the way, and you can go to Nibiru Daily, and I think it's still on there. I'm not sure, but it was a capture from, I think, within the same month or 2 months, where you actually see the same sun rising. But here's the difference, Michael.
Hey, mods, do a poll in the chat. Somebody do a poll, and one of the mods set up a poll for this, what this was, and let's see what the listeners think. I
agree. But the only other point I want to bring up on this, Michael, is that in this other video that was captured by another individual who was researching the same thing, there are clouds in the background. Now, the second sun comes up. Now, here's the funny thing. The clouds pass in front of the second sun. They pass in front of the second sun, which means it's a real object. The only thing I have not done, Michael, is to do a luminancy test, basically to see if the brightness of this second sun or part of the second sun, satellites, creates the luminosity which matches our sun, which would say, you know what, that's something that's definitely there and it's bright as heck. And here's another point I wanted to bring up. There's the SLU Sky Survey Team, which are basically astronomers. And if you guys remember, I don't know if you remember this, but the head of SLU, I think he's Australian, said, he just brought it up nonchalantly when they were looking at the Venus crossing the sun, and there's a second glowing object right next to the sun. He says, "Oh, hey, by the way, if you didn't know, we do have a second sun," and kind of left it at that, and everybody went nuts. Like, are you kidding me? There's a second sun? And then he just kind of went dark on it and said, "Hey, I can't talk about it anymore, but I said what I said." So,
here's
Michael,
what I've noticed over the. Yeah, Doctor.
I want to ask Michael, did George Norrie bring anything up about Planet X, or is he silent on that now?
No, I asked George Norrie about his thoughts on Planet X, and he believes that there is something real out there.
I was going to add to this. I've seen, several years ago, you'd see pictures of what was supposed to be Planet X, and they were easily debunked. But I've seen more and more pictures here lately, which I look at, and videos that it's like, yeah, okay, wait a minute, there's something I can't quite explain here. We don't have clouds in the way. I can't say, oh yeah, there's a sun dog there, or whatever you want to refer to it as. And I do know that the atmosphere will bend light, and clouds will transmit light. Water transmits light, so you're going to have a cloud that will transmit light, and it'll look like two suns, coming up, and that's all basically an optical illusion. But however, I can't explain the other things that are happening on not just this planet, but the things that are happening on the other planets throughout the solar system.
Absolutely, Peter.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So what's causing this? What's causing this? And so you look at the circumstantial evidence, even though we don't have access to the telescopes that know exactly where this thing is and is tracking it. We've got the circumstantial evidence. We've got the historical record, because it's believed that the last time this came by was during the Exodus. At least that's what would be indicated by the Coburn Bible and other historical accounts. And guess what? They lived through that. But there was also ETs involved in that situation too.
But Peter, even more so, Malachi Martin didn't come out directly and say it on Art Bell's show. Which, Michael, I wish you would have took that opportunity, because you'd been sitting in Art Bell's position right now if you wanted to go that way. But I understand your position.
No, I'd be glad to go on all these stations and stuff. It's just I'm going to be me, and I'm going to do what I've always done. That's all. It's
Oh
it's,
yeah. No.
What you find with people though is when you're controlled when you don't do what they want you to do. Then all of a sudden you're
without
controlled.
A question.
But go ahead.
Without a question, Michael. But here's the thing. Malachi Martin talked about this. He didn't say it directly, but he did say it indirectly. The Vatican is looking for something in the sky, and you know what? He was killed for it anyway. My supposition on that. But also there are multiple things. And Peter, you should agree with me. The third secret of Fatima. That's exactly what this is all about.
Revelation in 6:12 through 17 starts off with it's the blowing a what do you think? No, it starts off with a great trumpet. I mean, with a great earthquake, and then John
what have
says,
we heard, Peter? Before you go any further, what have we heard all across the planet? These bizarre noises, trumpets. Yeah. They've been described as trumpets, and it's not just in one place. It's across the whole planet. Canada, Romania, Slovakia, Russia, the United States. It's been worldwide.
Yeah, it has.
Heard them all, actually, but the scripture that I was referring to, it starts off with a great earthquake. And John says that the sun was turned to black as sackcloth of hair. The moon was turned to blood. He said that the stars fell from heaven like the way that young fig trees or unripe figs are blown off of a tree in a high wind. He said that the heavens would be rolled up like the scroll. So something is going to be blocking our view.
Maybe it's chemtrails.
No, that's actually...
And have you noticed, by the way, gentlemen, that they used to be spraying the skies completely? All I am seeing, and I live in Phoenix, and I've watched for the last 2 months, spraying from sun up to sunrise in front of the sun, not over to the north or east or west.
Doing it at night too.
The sun.
They do it at night too.
In front of the sun, Michael.
Yeah, well, they're doing it at night too, around the moon, and I see it. But go ahead.
Revelation 8:11 says, "And the third of the sun, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars will not give their light." When we go back to Revelation 6, it continues that the island groups and the mountains shall be removed. And then it talks. John sees this. He says, "The kings, the mighty men, the military commanders, and essentially all of their staff, cry out to the mountains and the rock masses and say, 'Cover us over.'" But it goes on and says, "Who can hide from the Lamb and the one seated upon the judgment of the Lamb and the one seated upon the throne?" So the Nibiru event is tied in with the end of this system of evil. What the elite have, or what we consider those who consider themselves the elite, they all have a ticket to their underground bunkers, to wherever they're going, underground cities. And when you start to research this, it's like, okay, well, that's where the trillions of dollars disappeared to, that in the secret space program. And they're expecting to live through this.
You know what?
Leave the rest of us up on top to die.
I think that if they have any brains at all, then they would give those bunkers up to people who they want to serve their agenda, yet have them think they're going to survive. And these elites would be heading off planet to survive, because if this happens, if this is real and it does happen, then I wouldn't want to be under the ground in none of them tin cans. But
I'd rather be right up on top of the ground. It's in an earthquake. It's not the earthquake that kills you; it's the building falling down on you that kills you.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Ann.
Right, Doctor?
I'd like to jump in if I can.
You got to yell at us.
I'd like to take a commercial break here and put a plug in for
Okay.
everything that we're discussing tonight. Everything is covered in the Return of Planet X, and it's interesting that we are now discussing topics that certainly need to be discussed. But if I could steer our listeners, and by the way, Michael,
well, we got to take this break now if we're going to take it.
All right. Since my last show with you, I've sold over 300 books on Amazon, and I thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Rand.
Thank you.
Well, absolutely.
It's all coming. It's all coming out, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
And it's in the book, The Return of Planet X. Just half price. Go get it.
All right. Hang on, guys. Let's take this break. It'll be a quick one, about 4 minutes. We'll be right back. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera. We've got 4 of us on here, and man, I'll tell you, we could use a couple more hours, couldn't we? We are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera. I've got Peter Kling, Robert Pepino, Dr. Rand, who hopefully is going to come in a little louder now when we come back here. Well, we are back. When they come back, I should say. And we're considering maybe 30 minutes of overtime here tonight. Maybe. We'll see. Now, here's the thing, folks. There's many of you who are trying to call in tonight. Unfortunately, Skype's not allowing it. So it is what it is. There's nothing I could do about that. By next week, we'll have the new phone line in. It's here. It's ready to go. It's just I need to get a couple wires. And once I do, that'll be set up. We're going to be putting the guest on that line, and then if Skype fails, it's not going to hurt us that way. But anyhow, let's get back to it. Website, latenightinthemidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, be informed. Folks, really important that you help us out. Subscribe. I mean, we've never sold out. We've had offers, believe me. I could be sitting on Easy Street if I wanted to, but I didn't take those offers because, it meant really selling out. Now, when somebody, like we have possibility of other affiliates coming up here soon, and you know why? Because they're not trying to take anything. They're offering to share us with their audiences, and that's okay, but no sellouts. But listen, we need your help. I mean, things aren't free for us. We got bills due. We didn't make it last month. So, folks, if we don't start seeing a little more support, I don't want to be that guy, but you're going to force me to, and I'm going to have to go back to you being a late nighter, definitely, to get to the archives. And I don't want to do that, but we've got to survive. We got to keep a light on. If I don't have lights on, I can't have the screen behind me. You know what I mean? So help us out, folks, if you can. There's a donate tab, a subscribe tab over on latenightinthemidlands.com. They're up at the top. Just click them. It's that easy. $5, $10, $20, whatever it might be. Help us out. It's nice to see new people. And we got some hardcore people who donate just about every month. And, and I'm glad that they do. But, it'd be nice to see if everybody participated, $1, $2, man, we'd be golden. I'd be able to add more on, have guests in the studio, all that stuff we want to do, but it takes money. Unfortunately, you got to be kind of a fraud to get anywhere in this business. So I'm just going to be me and see where it takes me. Anyways, 9.5 years almost, and we're still here. We're still talking about Planet X. Guys, we're back. So Dr. Rand, how you sounding now?
Well, I don't know.
There you are.
Is it back?
You are back.
Oh, you're great.
Yes.
I got an echo, but I don't mind. I'm used to radio and television, so I got a little echo here, but I like it.
Well, we're not hearing the echo, but we are hearing you, and that's great.
All right. Look,
I caught the echo to start with, but it's good now. Go ahead, Doctor.
Good. I appreciate that. I want to ask you guys a key question. What is it that you think is driving your individual ambitions to stay with these topics, even though they might not be politically or PC correct? What is it that's driving each one of you? I'm pretty sure I know from my own inner consciousness that I have to stay with what I know is real for me.
Well, I could give you a quick answer for me, and that is every
All right.
time I start to wave my hand at it and push it a little further away, some new news story comes out like, hey, in 2022, 2 stars are going to collide in deep space, and you're going to see a new star in the sky. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about Planet X again. But that's me. Real simple. Robert?
Absolutely. I think what Jason is asking.
Who's setting the Morse code? I just heard Morse code.
I heard the
just
same
tried
thing,
pumping up
Michael.
my
I heard the
volume.
same. I heard the same thing.
I just tried pumping up the volume. Did it get any better?
No, you sound good to me, Jason.
All right. That was me, guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anyway, what you were asking is what's driving us. From my perspective, Jason, it's a transition into a new level of consciousness and existence. That's the bottom line. I mean, that's the overall supposition of what you're asking. Yes, we're all looking for the next level of consciousness. It takes this level of transition to bring us there, kicking and screaming for some and open arms for others. And I'm probably somewhere in the mix of in between there. I think that's exactly what it is for me.
All right, and then Peter, and then
Peter,
I've got to get to some questions that listeners send me. Otherwise, they're going to get angry and never send me questions for you guys no more.
Michael, they love you, and they will always send you questions because of what you do.
Peter?
The driving thing for me is following biblical prophecy and seeing how it applies to the earth and teaching people what's going on.
And I knew that.
The scriptures don't end at this Armageddon. That's just and the world doesn't stop; it goes on, and so does life. And it says, well, in Revelation 7, I think it's verse 9, it says that there was a great crowd from every nation, tongue, and tribe from around the world that no man could number that survives this. However, the majority is not. A great crowd of 7 billion people going on 8 billion people is 10% is still a lot of people. But still, life will go on, and it's up to us to make the right choices in this. And we're running out of prophecies.
Well, speaking of prophecies,
that's where we're at.
Peter, I've got a question here from Cybergun, and he says, if there are multiple timelines, then how will prophecy be fulfilled?
Oh, well, you see, the one timeline is going to come to an end. We all have free will, so we can choose to do whatever we want. We can choose to ignore the truth, or we could choose to examine the truth. And once if we choose to ignore the truth, then we go on our merry lives, and we're on that broad, spacious timeline until, guess what? It's a Nibiru event, and we don't have any food, we don't have any water, and we live in the 50th floor of a high-rise building in New York City on the east side. All the money that you have and all the good things that you thought you were saving up for are now over, and you got to walk up and down the stairs just to get to your apartment where the water doesn't run.
Okay, Peter, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time.
Yeah, and so if you ignore that, then you ignore the future. If you pay attention and look and listen to what we're talking about and follow the scripture, this is the first time that I'm really concerned about a Planet X. I wasn't concerned about Ison. I wasn't concerned about Ellen, and the timelines just weren't there, if you want to talk about that, to create some devastation. But there's still a few prophecies that need to be fulfilled. And we're seeing parts of this under the Trump administration where all of a sudden, wait a minute, Hillary didn't get elected. That means that the paradigm has changed here. The globalists are no longer in charge. Now, is this stuff going to be exposed? And you see, understanding that there's still prophecies that have to happen, we're going to see the rise of what is called an eighth king, or what will appear to be a world power, probably through an economic turnover. But all these things have been put into place, and understanding them from a scientific viewpoint cleans all that religious dogma and doctrine and indoctrination out. It allows us to think for ourselves, and then we can use our minds to create the future that we want, because getting through this depends on one thing: getting out of that beta fight or flight and getting into alpha, where love exists. And that's where the greatest commandment comes in.
And so then the prophecy so then having multiple timelines won't affect the prophecy.
No, not at all, because what we deemed as the catastrophic timeline comes to an end. You see, what happened, Nibiru is like one big filter, and turn the lights off and everybody gets to play in the dark until there's nobody left to play in the dark.
All right.
Except for those people who got out of the city, basically, excuse me, or who have prepared, knowing that this event is coming.
All right, and let's give a question here for Dr. Rand. This one comes from CR. There's not too many of them, guys, so I'm just gonna blast through a few of them here. Dr. Rand, and of course another one just came on top of it. All right, why last week was the moon covered orb? I don't know what orb means. Eclipse from top to bottom instead of side to side. I don't know. Take it as it is. So the moon was eclipsed from top to bottom instead of side to side. Do you know anything about that, Dr. Rand?
I'm a little confused, and no disrespect to the questioner. I'm a little confused by the question.
May I interject?
Yes, go ahead.
It appears that the Earth has developed a pretty good wobble, and as the Earth rotates, it's not the moon that's shifted. And this is something I've reported for several months. It's our perspective. Yeah, the moon is still waxing and waning the same way. But I noticed this severely when the night that we left to come back down off the grid. Back on the grid, I should say, when we left the mountain. The moon was waxing from left to right, evenly across from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. By the time we got down to the Boston area, as we were coming back down, we got down to Massachusetts, I was noticing that the shadow of the moon was now, or the way that it was waxing, was from like 10 to 11 o'clock down toward 5, 6 o'clock. And that caught my eye. And I was like, okay, why is this going on? Why am I seeing this? And so I've been paying attention to this. And yeah, Earth's evidently developed a wobble. I just posted a video on this day before yesterday.
All right.
Well, may I give my own point of view on that, Michael?
Sure,
if I may, on that
sure.
question?
Let me just say that I haven't noticed anything out of the ordinary, so I'm missing it over here. I've got, but go ahead.
Well, Michael, this has happened on more than one occasion, and the person who asked that question is a very legitimate question, because this happened to me when I was on the radio back in 2012, where basically, I think what your listener is asking is the top of the moon was basically sheared off by a shadow.
Yeah,
and I had never seen that before either. And basically,
I don't know if I've ever seen it. Go ahead.
Basically, my thought process is this: that if and I absolutely believe this, that the Planet X system, the brown dwarf and its satellites are, within our solar system, being Nibiru, the closest now between Jupiter and Mars, is large enough to overshadow our moon. It would cause that sheer crescent from the north to the south. In other words, the north would be cut off of the moon, the south would be shining. I've seen that on several occasions, and that's my best supposition on that.
Robert, that is very logical.
I'll go with that one. With that.
Yeah, the panel says yes, it's a winner.
Survey says ding.
Survey says.
Yeah, that would also indicate that if that was the case, wouldn't this planet need to be between the sun and the moon in order to break that?
Absolutely, Peter, and that's what would create that. That's what would create that. And I've seen it on 3 occasions. The last one only being about 4 weeks ago. I noticed this, and I'm not sure if your questioner had saw that about 4 weeks ago. Maybe he saw it further back, but yes, that's my theory.
Okay,
anyway.
let me give you another one, Peter, and let's try to give. I mean, let's give the answers, but let's not go too deep, because I want to try to get through some of these questions. And if you guys are up to it, we could do an extra 30.
Sure.
I'm up for it, Michael.
All right, so that'll give us some time
works.
here. Michael, tell your guests living off the grid is easy. It all depends on climate. I live off the grid, and the only pay bills we get is our phones and our internet. They said they have very large water tanks.
There you go.
All right. Mike.
The one thing that I might add to that, and I've said this before, I have never felt so free as I did when we were off the grid. Seriously. And it definitely, I've gotten healthier being off the grid, being back on the grid making me more stark crazy than anything else. But I feel my body actually degenerating now. I can't wait to get back and get physical exercise again.
Well, and then we got the same question again here, I think. Why was the moon eclipsed from top to bottom? So we covered that. Let's see. Dr. Rand is low. Next one. Barbara Lamb was on the elevator just now. When are you? Oh, okay. See, folks, give me questions for the guest. Anything else is going to have to go to email, because this is why. I mean, it just takes up time from the show and it makes me not want to even get into questions. So let's see. I'll try one more here. This one's from Jesse. Ask the panel if we are having a collective ascension, and if it has anything to do with our DNA changing as the Schumann frequencies change. For example, how cymatics work.
Well, Peter, I think that one's for you, brother.
I'm trying to give you guys these questions, but I mean, I'm getting all kinds of other stuff mixed in with it. It's not even worth it.
There's an ascension happening, but it's not as people think. It's not like we're going to be raptured off the planet, taken to another location. That goes totally against the prime directive for planet Earth. Most people don't understand there is a prime directive. And where that ascension takes place is within our own minds and hearts, and it goes right back to the greatest commandment. And here's why we can scientifically prove this. The greatest commandment states, as Jesus put it, you must love Yahweh your God with your whole heart, soul, and mind, and you must love your neighbor as you do yourself. Now, just the state of love takes us out of that beta fight and flight. So there is no more being afraid, and there is no running away from anything once you are connected. Now, the basic principles here is to love the creator, not some god wannabe from a different planet or a star system, but the creator of the entire multiverse, the soul of the cosmos itself, the dynamic energy that makes this one living organism in which we live. That is the power which we can connect to through prayer. And then we can take that power and through meditation create our futures. And when we have accurate knowledge, we know how to create our futures, because we have a dynamically fantastic future. But it depends on us making the transformation. We have to be the ones to choose whether we are going to support the satanic system of evil, whether it's politically or in its deepest realms of the occult things that we don't want to know about, or if we are going to be on the side of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords and be in that dynamic change of peace. We're going to get the advanced technologies. We're going to get the clean energy. We're going to learn to live in harmony with nature. Instead of destroying the earth, there's the technology to repair and fix the earth, but not just that, repair and fix our DNA. Get rid of the telomeres and reconnect.
But Peter, can I add something to that?
Yeah,
is
sure.
that we've had that technology all along. It's been hindered by the deep state. That technology has been around for 70 years. The problem is we're having to fight a dark force in order to get to the technology that it has been in existence for that long. So now the whole fight that our president, and when I mean our president, I mean my president, your president, everybody's president, who's awake and aware to everything that's going on and everything that's being played in the background right now to get to that source of energy, information, and technology that will basically eliminate the deep state, the dark technology that will come to light for all of us. So reality is, this is the grand time of awakening, and unfortunately, and I think this has happened successively through the millennia of each transition of evolution of the physical and higher consciousness state. It seems like, guys, that we are always in a state of it's a planet of graduation. We always come back to the planet where we transfer from first grade to second grade to third grade. Some of us are left behind to repeat the classes, and some of us graduate to the next level. It just absolutely seems that way to me from everything that I've been observing and consciously, filtrating through my process of observation.
Well, you are correct in what you're saying there, Robert. And here's, most people, as I say, they never make it past this war of Armageddon. Oh, it's the end of the world. No, it's not the end of the world. It's the end of this system. It's the end of this corrupt world system, which has kept this technology hidden. The same people that are in charge of this world system are sacrificing our children to demonic entities, to these fallen angels, the part of the satanic rebellion, and they're the ones that are hiding this technology from us, that suppress the technology and suppress the truth. This is what is going to be done away with. Then those technologies will be allowed to flourish. But it's not just that, because the whole regime will change. We'll be under a positive energy force. We'll be under positive ET guidance, and they have the technology that is far beyond what we already know about here that's being suppressed. So there'll be new things. Now, what you said about the evolution, we have been in a de-evolution for the past 6,000 years, according to what Scripture says, and that is going to be reversed at this time. So yes, we are going to be on an evolution, and when we go back to Revelation, or go ahead to Revelation, I should say, Revelation, the 21st chapter, that evolution is clearly stated there. It says that pain, sorrow, outcry, those will all be things of the past, including death will be a thing of the past. Once we have our DNA restored, there won't be death. Oh, well, the earth's going to be overcrowded. No, it's not, because you don't know the next step. In the beginning, God created the earth. There are billions of Earth-like planets scattered from one end of the universe to the other, just waiting for humans to inhabit them. That is our next step. Arthur C. Clarke had insight to this.
Peter, does this coincide to the 1,000 years of peace and enlightenment once the Lord comes back?
This is what happens at the end. These are the unopened scriptures. These are the unopened scrolls that will be opened at this time. I got to see a glimpse of what's ahead, and it's totally congruent. If we had more time, I could go into greater detail to explain it. But as I said, Arthur C. Clarke had an insight to this in the movies 2001 and 2010, when David Bowman becomes the Star Child.
He was an insider.
Well, he invented the first telecommunications satellite. The man was a genius.
He was an insider.
Hey guys, here's a couple more questions for you, and here's how it's going to go, folks. From now on, private messaging to me, Michael Vera, in my chat room at LateNightInTheMidlands.com. If you private message me, it needs to be a question to the guest, not "Hello, Mr. Vera, how are you?" or any of that. That all goes email, LateNightInTheMidlands@yahoo.com or MV@LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Not trying to be rude, but that's how I get my questions from the chat. So, and I don't want to be weeding through stuff. That's why I do a private message. So if you start trying to just hold a conversation with me in private chat, I'm going to silence you. Now you know.
Next question.
Yeah.
Next question.
Wife just asked me about the third currency reset. I have been telling her it's coming. Can Dr. Rand and or Peter explain? I don't know. Explain. It's all broke up after that. But can you explain?
Are you referring to the coming anticipated scenario where they're going to phase out physical currency and go with electronic currency?
I don't know, but you got low again.
That's part of it, Doctor. That is part of it. What they're asking about is the elimination of the dollar as the world's currency, which will cause the collapse of the debt system. And I believe probably what they're referring to is when they do roll out, and this is basically waiting in the wings from what I understand, they'll be rolling out plastic currency, and it'll be a worldwide currency. This may be the fulfillment of the image of the wild beast in Revelation 13, where you can neither buy nor sell unless you have the mark. And the three people on this planet that can pull this off successfully are watching angels flying around in the arena as he was translating. Now, it's just a short hop from South Africa down to Antarctica, and we've got a lot of dignitaries that have gone to Antarctica. And if we look at the monuments that are around the world, both in Mesoamerica and in Africa, but primarily Egypt, where we've got the Great Pyramids, it would be ludicrous to believe that there wasn't more of the same under the ice in Antarctica. So if you look at the movie, what is it, AVP, Alien versus Predator? Where
I watched that many times, Peter.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Less the aliens and predators as they portrayed them.
And I think that was a tall tale sign. I think they were trying to tell us. And again, I think Hollywood does that all the time. I think there are people on the inside who want us to know, and they try and leak this out. Jason, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No.
No, that was me. I'm saying I'm trying to put this damn video up, and I see little dots flashing. I don't know what the hell. Go ahead. Never mind. Go ahead, Dr. Rand. I'm sorry.
What I'd like to do is I don't want to steer from where we're at. What I'd like to do is clarify a little bit something regarding this issue of contactees, which the three of us and Michael, although you've not been personally contacted, you certainly have had several sightings, correct?
Yeah, they've teased me.
All right. What I'd like to do is when I represented the United States at the first World UFO Congress, which took place in Tucson in May of 1991, I prepared a document which I presented called the UFO ETUT Timeline Enigma. When did it begin and where will it end? I want to read a little bit of an excerpt from it because it deals with what an ET is versus what a UT is. ET being extraterrestrial and UT meaning ultra-terrestrial. So let me begin with what I wrote and presented at that meeting on ETs. I presented it in the form of a series of what-ifs, okay? Okay. What if extraterrestrials, ETs, represent a much younger, advanced cosmic intelligence force, which may in fact exist in a dual reality form representing both benevolent and malevolent intentions, i.e. the Greys, the EBEs, which are the extraterrestrial biological entities, or perhaps the purported reptilian-like creatures from the Zeti Reticuli system. Now, both are suspected of being in contact with many of the world's governments for well over 70 years, and in many cases suspected of striking secret deals and pacts with not only our government, but with top-secret organizations like MJ-12, PI-40, and 54-12. Question, did they covertly agree to exchange high-tech information to gain Earthian resources, which means establishing secret underground research facilities, and in many cases, the right to abduct or experiment with humans and animals? In case of the animals, most likely cattle, producing other types of animal mutilization. Now I want to go to UTs. Question, what if ultra-terrestrials, UTs, represent a much older, more complex and highly developed, spiritually oriented cosmic intelligence force, which may exist in a primary reality form of benevolent intention and behavior, i.e. the blondes, also called the Nordics, who are, by our human standards, 7 feet tall, blue-eyed, fair-haired, and fair-skinned. Throughout history, it is rumored they have been in contact with many of the world's governments, key scientists, and simply ordinary folk, while most often promoting goodwill, sometimes sharing timely, important knowledge and information covering many fields, disciplines useful to mankind during his troubled sojourn through Earthian history. That's the end of the quote. Now I want to hypothecate on that just a second, and then I'll turn it back to you guys.
Okay.
In my case, they were UTs. They were not ETs in the classic sense. I'm drifting toward the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis as being the more positive one that's been interfacing with the Earth through time memorial, all the way back to caveman days, all the way back to all the and Peter, of course, can correspond to this, all the biblical implications were not with just ETs who may or may not have our best interests at heart. I believe that the more complicated spacecraft, the big triangles, the ones that are city blocks wide and hundreds of feet high, these are the extraterrestrial, these are the ultra-terrestrial craft that dwarf what we commonly see as the regular extraterrestrial craft. Now, the question is, how do we differentiate? And that can only be established by the individual or the contactee, per se, that has had the contact and that is aware and cognizant enough to share that experience in a contemporary, intelligent setting. Now, Peter, I think you were dealing with extraterrestrials, not ultra-terrestrials.
I've dealt with them all.
Yes, but I'm the confusion that you were left with, you know, and the subsequent trauma. And I'm not saying you're severely traumatized, but
Oh no.
you've admitted to me that it has left you with a lot more questions that have never been answered. Okay.
Yeah, and you know, eventually we'll find the answers out. But when that was the negative ETs that I've been in contact with, and certainly the ones that have tried to end my life 16 times. But on the converse side, you know, I have to look at the contact that I had when I was in a coma, and an entity came to me and said, "Hey, come with me," and took me to see the birth of my youngest child. There's the blue orb that instantly appeared out of nowhere that stopped a deer from coming through the windshield of my car, which would have been certain death for both me and my son. When we impacted that, we had to be doing close to 60 miles an hour. I just set the cruise control for 63.
I got it.
You see things like that, you know, plus all the something that I did, which I don't talk about that often, but here's part of seeing a negative timeline. I got a lot of answers when I took a class that was developed by Jose Silva. I can't tell you exactly when he developed it, but I took the class in 1970.
Thank you, Ira.
1978. And
Michael, you got the video. I'm sorry.
Listen, guys.
You have the video up, Michael.
Let me address the listeners real quick. I've got the video up on screen here. I want everyone to take a good look at this. I'm going to play it a few times while the guys are talking. And then I wouldn't mind in the last hour if people let us know what you think, whether in chat or whatever. But go ahead.
Well, I'd taken this class, and it was the greatest class I had ever taken. It was based on the work of Edgar Cayce, but they broke it down scientifically so they could repeat the work and teach the class. And this really taught interdimensional thinking. Of course, back then they didn't know that we lived in a multiverse, but the rules still applied, that you could receive any information anywhere within the universe or anywhere within existence where life existed itself. Now they say anywhere within any dimension. Which is interesting. They've changed the wording, just the verbiage just a little bit. I did get the updated tapes or CDs actually, but this opened up a whole new realm of how to use our consciousness and explain why I was able to see future events, because that's one of the things that we can do in Theta. Now, part of the class, I believe it was in the 303 section, they gave you guides, spiritual guides. You went down to level, and they programmed